panel for the day, supply chain digitalization from real-time monitoring to end-to-end visibility, providing total integrity to pharma shipments. Ladies and gentlemen, to take this panel forward, we have amongst us the director and founder at Syncor, Mr. Javin Bhinde. He's a moderator and he will now take this panel forward, inviting all our panelists on board. I take pleasure in calling him up on stage. Please do join me in welcoming him here.
Good evening, everyone. It's the last panel discussion of the day, and I'm extremely happy to have a very, very privileged set of panel members today who've come from various experiences and backgrounds. First of all, a very quick thank you to Reggie, to the entire team for inviting all of us here today and for ensuring that we all get back together in a physical and digital environment, because I'm sure we've all missed meeting each other and seeing each other after 2 years. So a big thank you to the organizers. Without much ado, I'll first call the panel members on stage and then we'll kick off the panel discussion on digitization, wherein we'll be covering a variety of topics. As you will see from the background of all the speakers on the stage, we have a lot to discuss, a lot to share, and a lot to learn. So let me first start by inviting Ms. Smriti Iyer on stage. She is the AGM IT at the Cargo Service Center. She's an experienced head of information technology with a demonstrated history of working in the logistics and supply chain industry, skilled in operations management, Oracle database, CRM, IT service management, and team building. Thank you, ma'am. Next, I would like to call upon Sid Chakravarti. He is the founder and CEO of Statwig. Sid is a leader in emerging technologies such as IoT and blockchain, with focus on leveraging these technologies to develop solutions that have large-scale social impact. Next, we have Mr. Santosh Upadhyay. Mr. Santosh is the National Sales Manager at Chiron Behring Vaccines. Mr. Santosh has worked in the past as an experienced marketing professional for large pharma multinational companies. And I can promise you that today's panel, and though the topic is pharma logistics, we have a marketing professional with us on stage. He has a very interesting case to really share with us on how he overcame the challenge of distributing vaccines. So we'll save that for later. Next, we have Mr. Parikh. Mr. D.S. Parikh, he is Deputy General Manager, Import Logistics at Lupin. He has 30 years of work experience, which includes export-import logistics, sales and marketing, and procurement in different verticals such as chemical, agrochemical, and pharmaceutical industries. Thank you for being with us today. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Umesh. Mr. Umesh heads export and import operations at Sanofi. He is a pharmaceutical professional with 34 years experience in manufacturing, packaging, warehousing, supply chain, imports and exports, designated as an expert staff in injectables, ointments, and tablet manufacturing by the FDA. Please join us, sir. We also have with us on a digital platform, Mr. Vikram Singh. Mr. Vikram Singh is CEO and founder of Tech Eagle. Mr. Vikram Singh started Tech Eagle with the vision to create the world's largest on-demand drone logistics network for healthcare, hyperlocal, e-commerce, maritime, and defense. He has 9+ years of experience in the aerospace drone industry. Thank you, Mr. Vikram, and welcome. So way back in 1998, one of my senior mentors gifted me a book. The book was called Being Digital by an author called Nicolas Negroponte. How many of us have heard or read about this book, Being Digital? In the book, the first time I read about bits and bytes. And there's a very interesting anecdote that the author narrates in the book. So he's passing through the airport security with a laptop. And in those days, they would check the value of goods that you are carrying with you when you're flying. So the airport security officer asks the author, what is the value of this laptop? Now, ordinarily, the answer would be maybe a few $1,000s in those days. But Mr. Nicholas gave a very interesting answer. He said the value of this laptop is millions of dollars. Now, he was not referring to the hardware or the value of the physical asset, but he was actually referring to the amount of data and the value of data that is stored in that laptop. Now, this story struck me as one of the most interesting stories on the journey of digitization for any organization. And I think in today's panel, what we are going to hear from three different sets of speakers. The first set of speaker being the consumer or the customer, which is the pharmaceutical industry, which has adopted or implemented various technologies over the last few years or even decades. We then have a very interesting story or anecdote to hear from a couple of startups, which are creating huge leaps in advancement when it comes to track and trace, serialization, drone-based delivery systems. And then, of course, we have a head of IT who has been in the forefront of implementing technological solutions within her organization. So it's a very rich panel, and I look forward to sharing a lot of interesting insights with all of you today. Let me start with Mr. Umesh. So being in the industry for the past few decades, you have seen it all. You have seen the days when technology was in its infancy, how it was rapidly adopted, and then where we are today. So we would like you to share with us from your experience the entire the ERP or the inventory management part of the organization, because today we talk about inventory moving, right? So it's all about goods moving. So how did it all evolve? And in your experience, what were some of the key insights that you would like to share with our audience?
I prefer to stand because I should be on the same level as you are. And believe me, I've seen it all in the sense that he's saying, I started off as a manufacturing executive in a company called the Anglo-French Drug Company in Bangalore, and then went on to SmithKline and Beecham, and then to Herbst and now Sanofi. So I've seen it all in the sense that the entire process of digitalization and automation has taken place along with the culture of the company. What is important is that you must understand what you want to achieve. You cannot have it happen overnight. You cannot have it happen just because you feel that you want to tell the world that, look, I'm going to introduce digitalization in my company. What is important is, what do you want to achieve? What is it there? For instance, if you're tracking your product from, say, your manufacturing site in Goa to Australia, Sydney in Australia, would a simple data logger do the tool, or would you have sensors or various tracking mechanisms which will tell you at what point, what stage of the journey is there a temperature excursion, and what can you do about it? And whether something can be done, it cannot be done, you can minimize the damage that is being done. So I can start the process when we had warehouses where temperatures were monitored by using a wet and dried bulb thermometer. We would get up in the morning, enter the values, and do it once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and it would be good enough. Then we started what we call the temperature mapping of the warehouse. Say on the topmost rack, what would be the temperature in different seasons, be it summer, winter, be it the rainy season. In India, we always say we don't have spring and autumn, but we have a rainy season. So we map the temperatures in different locations in the warehouse. Then we went on to actual location of the inventory in the different positions of the warehouse, so that you know that you are going to give the right material or the right finished product to wherever you're shipping it out. So warehouse management, barcoding, all that evolved over time because the volume and the business required it. Today, we are going into advanced technology. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are going to talk about how exactly we are going to use sensors, how exactly we are going to ensure that somebody sitting in another place will get to know if there is something going wrong in a shipment. And that is what we are looking for. And if the product deserves it, say if you're shipping something like vaccines or you're shipping insulins across the world, you better see that it is given to the customer in the way it should be given and handed over at that point of time. So right from inventory management, material management to production management to sales and distribution management, we've seen it all, so that there is end-to-end visibility of what's happening in the factory, what's happening in your organization to the end customer, be it the market right across the world. We've been able to do that, and that is what you should be aiming for.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let's move on to Mr. Parikh, sir. Mr. Parikh, in all your entire 3 decades of experience, you've again looked at various methods of supply chain management or inventory management. Could you share with us again what have been some of the key achievements and also some of the key challenges? One of them, as rightly mentioned, is the culture of the organization, the intent behind adopting any certain technology. Apart from these two, would you like to share from your experience what other challenges and solutions you have experienced in your career?
Yeah, initially in 90s, I think this 87, the computer was inaugurated, I would say, came into India. And people started using as a automatic typewriter. I've seen people using as a typewriter. Slowly came 2000s where technology started to evolve. AI came into picture, IoT came into pictures. And then we saw even the instruments started picking to each other. Bot came into picture where you don't have to do typing everything, which is repeated. You have a format where you can write it down, and that format can be copied by bot, and that can be carried forward for filling the data. Now things have been advanced. I think a lot of technology people are here. I think they can further say in future what is going to come. But the biggest challenge which I face today also is that in organization atmosphere, we have a technology, ERP, AI, everything. But as soon as we go out of organizations, there are a lot of stakeholders involved, right from transporter to CHA, warehouses, airlines, and then subsequently the same pattern at the export end also. This all works on individual levels, okay, and they don't speak to each other. A guy like me who looks into exports and imports, I have to collaborate all this data and then take decisions or track the consignment. Okay, I have to call up or I have to ask my colleague to call up transporter where my cargo is. Okay, now to GPS system you have, but then they have different their own platforms. It doesn't speak with the airlines or CHA software. CHA software doesn't speak with the airlines software. Okay, so as a customer, I have to visit 4 to 5 softwares to get my information. So can I have one platform where all these stakeholders can put their data, or I can see in one page? That is my future requirement as an industry, not as an industry requirement today.
Wonderful, wonderful. So on that note, I just want to jump to Sid. Sid, I think that is directly leading into you and what you do. So could you tell us a little bit first about what you do and what your company does and how it can address some of the previous points we heard?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I run a company called Statvik. It's a startup based out of Hyderabad. So we started our journey to solve one simple problem. If you basically are tracking a product, you should be able to track it at a unit level, which is each individual product, and you should track it all the way to the consumer in a multi-stakeholder environment. So today, even though that is such a simple requirement, it's not possible. It's only possible in very specialized supply chains where one stakeholder is controlling a majority of the supply chain, where he has the capability of getting data. But that's usually not true for many of the supply chains that we see today. So our solution, what it does is basically creates a digital ID, kind of leverages the serialization that most of the manufacturers are doing, so that there's no additional investment on tagging prod, and kind of use that as a digital ID to capture data at various touch points in the supply chain. And these touch points are not necessarily under one stakeholder. So these are touch points, for example, from manufacturing plant to airport, airport to airline, another airport, next to the distributor, and further down. It doesn't stop at the distributor, but it goes further down as the distributor ships the product into the primary stockist to secondary stockist and to the pharmacies. So the idea is to create this digital thread for each product, to exactly figure out where a particular product is in the supply chain. But more essentially, it's not so much to basically cut down costs. I mean, there is that value of ensuring safety and quality of the product, but it's also opening doors, because we're recording all this data on blockchain. It's kind of opening doors for new business models for these companies. For the first time, you have visibility into where your product is, in what market is it selling, when is it expiring, at what pharmacies is my inventory. So this amount of data could help you build new business models, as simple as, I mean, to give an example, e-commerce, right? So that you can really know where the product is, how does it reach the customer, so that you can build this application layer, you can build this payment layer, e-commerce layer on top of that data, which leverages that data and builds new revenue models. Because for a long time, supply chain has always been seen as a backbone of the industry. But I think the true potential of supply chains is a lot more. It can be a revenue generating machine for the manufacturing industry, and that's what we want to get out of the data that we are collecting at various touch points.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll come back to you, Sid, with some more questions. Meanwhile, can I move to Mrs. Iyer? In your entire career, wherein you have actually managed and ran large IT projects, what were some of those projects targeted towards end objectives? What would be they in terms of customer satisfaction or in terms of internal process improvements? Could you share us a little bit more about your journey in terms of implementing these IT projects within the Cargo Service Center?
Yes, in Cargo Service Center, we have already wanted to give real-time temperature monitoring and where the cargo is stored, in which location, to the customer by mobile app, through a mobile app. This will give a transparency of the data in a real time, and where it is stored, in which location it is stored. It will be showing that information to the it can be airlines, or it can be agents, or whoever tracks the consignment through our mobile app. It's called Turant CSE. Yes, of course, before we end to come to the conclusion to have a mobile app, we have to do a lot of major upgrades in our ERP and to entire facility to get the temperature mapping done and to get the infrastructure, everything. Yes, the whole exercise, the entire team, we all did lot of brainstorm, and we got all the infrastructure done, upgraded our ERP, which will get integrated with our temperature monitoring system, which every 5 minutes the temperature information is pushed to the cloud. And yes, finally, when the customer tracks the airway bill, which has been handed over at our terminal, right from the truck dock in what is the temperature and what time we done the truck dock is done, till it is getting released from our terminal. All the step-by-step process has everything has been shown in the history of the tracking, along with in which zone it has been kept and what is the temperature at that zone at that particular point of time. That is also the visibility is being given. Yes, we took this as one project which we wanted to show the entire transparency, how we handle the cargo at our terminal. And yes, we need to do more innovative processes to get integrated along with this. We are doing the brainstorming on that front. This is one of the major projects which we have done for this thing.
And this is available to who all? Who is the primary consumer of this information? It is the pharma company, or it is the agent or the freight forwarder. So who is the beneficiary of this data?
The beneficiary of this data, yes, of course. If a shipper also wants to know about his airwayable cargo, where it has been, how it has been handled, and where it is right now, he can also track on the agents, custom brokers. Everybody can have the visibility of this data.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. So I'll now move on to Santosh. And Santosh, you come from a different background, technically speaking, in terms of your experience in sales and marketing. But you have a very interesting case to share with the audience today in terms of the product which was launched by you, a vaccine. And so now moving from, say, pharma to vaccines, of course, Sid also is dealing with vaccines. We'll come to that a bit later. But tell us about your experiment, if I may call it so, and how it kind of became a revelation for us all.
Okay. Thank you, Javin. Thank you, the audience, and thank you to all the program organizers for giving me this opportunity to be at this particular platform. I think the story, a real business story, which I'm going to tell you today, is a story which, in a sense, is very mind-boggling. I'm the head of sales and marketing for a company called Chiron Bearing Vaccines Private Limited. I think that may ring some bells in Umesh sir's ears because he's from Hext and we have a legacy there. In 2019, that was December 2019, we launched this company in India. It never had a sales and marketing team. It always was a subsidiary of some MNC. So we launched this company. The distribution started from December 2019. We set up the team in March. And when we came out of the training program, there was lockdown. Complete lockdown. So company, and we are a small team of 30, sanction strength of 40 people. At that time, we were 25 people. So in March 13, we came out of our Ankleshwar factory. And we were all very enthusiastic and everything. And we just went into our respective headquarters. And the next day, the message came, sorry, guys, you can't work. And all our major customers were doctors who were not meeting. They shut down their clinic. So what do we do? Now, that was a make or break situation. So in April, I did an analysis with the team. I said, if we can't meet our customers, the competition also can't meet our customers, right? And our customers are doctors. So doctors are shut. We can't meet them. Competitor can meet them. Case nullified. What is the next step to do? We said this product is basically Rabipur. And the name was recreated as ChiroRab. So we said, all our lives, we have considered distribution and logistics as a support function. But that day, that in month of April 2020, I realized that the distribution system is now our business partner. And that's where we made a revolution. We said, and there was another catch. Every competitor of ours was just sitting in their homes and offices and whatever they might be. And they had decided that since there is a lockdown, we will not supply. I told my management, since nobody is supplying, we will supply. Let's see what happens. And that was in around April 14, 2020, I clearly remember, we started supplying. Now, we had a very tricky situation. The customer does not know our product. The doctor does not know the brand name. So how do we get the business from the pharmacist and the chemist? There is an interesting principle in pharma, and especially in pharma, not so much in vaccines, in pharma. When you convince a customer, a doctor, the first prescription that he gives actually bounces at 5 different chemists. So the patient takes the prescription, goes to 5 different chemists, He does not find the product anywhere, it is substituted. But the chemist, the 5 chemists now know that there is a product called ChiroRab. There was one model. We changed the entire model on its head and said, we will convince 1500 distributors that Rabipur is now ChiroRab. Okay. And those 1500 distributors had at least 10 sales staff, and all those 10 sales staff went to chemists and told them Rabipur is now ChiroRab. And in the legacy of Rabipur still continues, that 90% of the prescriptions come in the form of Rabipur. Okay. So all these prescriptions of Rabipur over a period of time got substituted to ChiroRab. That was the thing is, we in business, in sales and marketing, value anything that generates revenue for us. In the initial days before COVID, it was this traditional methodology of taking the bag, going to the doctor, convincing the doctor, bouncing the prescription, making it available, and then the brand builds. But here it was with the help of the logistics, the distribution system, where we leveraged our strength with 1500 stockists and built up a brand. Now there was another challenge. The challenge was this product is under DPCO, which means it is under price control. And our margins to stockists were 8%, Umeshji, and to chemists was 16%. And the competitor used to give 10 and 20%. 10, 20%, and above that they used to give discount and schemes. So I was nowhere. No, as far as margins were concerned, I was nowhere. But when we classified the entire distribution system into 2 parts, we said at one set, you have vaccine dealers. They are very sensitive about margins and making profits. And the other set were pharma distributors. I knew for sure that if in the distribution system, distribution chain, if I make my product available at every pharmacy in this country, there is nothing which the vaccine dealers could do, because they never go to the pharmacy. So we caught hold of all the stockists, briefed them that Rabipur is now ChiroRab. This is the margin. Please support us. And for the first time, they felt that they are not a distribution partner or a logistic support. They are our business partner. And that feeling in them, when we motivated them and we sensitized them, they helped us. And last year, our market share was 35%. Now, this market share of 35% would look very interesting. It is very interesting because none of the customers knew our brand name. So with none of the customers and the doctors not knowing that this product is actually Rabipur, we had a Umeshji brand market share of 35%. That's the beauty of this entire strategy, that when you do innovation and creativity, in the sense when you make other functions, it is applicable to all functions, HR function, usually function. But when you make people, empower them and make them feel important that you are a part of our business strategy, you also generate revenue, we also generate revenue. I think that was the game changer. Other pharma companies in the initial last 1 year, they focused only on vaccine dealers, but they forget that vaccine dealers do not go to pharmacists. Last year, whole year, we focused only on pharma stockists because our product as far as dispensing is concerned is near to zero. So that's what the beauty of the strategy. That is how we leverage the distribution system to build a brand. And mind you, it is the biggest brand in the category today. Last year also, it was the biggest brand in the category. And purely because we made the logistic department and the logistic function and the distribution system as our business partner rather than as a support function. Thank you, Javed.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you. We'll come back to some more of the points that you have mentioned, especially the part about the cold storage and the entire temperature control bit, because yes, vaccines have to be also stocked and moved in a certain temperature control environment. But now thanks to Vikram for waiting there patiently. And Vikram, we are quite excited to have you with us again today because Vikram is the CEO and founder of Tech Eagle, as we all know, and I think for the first time, sometime this year, a few months back, Vikram, can you share with us how was the delivery of the first drone-based vaccine, which you had done via drones? Tell us a little bit more about that and your journey so far.
Thank you, Javin, and thank you, Global Pharma, to actually have me here on the platform. So Tech Eagle is like we started this in back in 2015 with a vision to create basically a logistics airline with the drones to save and improve lives. And in that particular journey, a lot of, I mean, the pharma and the aviation, both industries are, we can say, heavily regulated. And specifically when it comes to the drones, it was heavily regulated since a couple of months ago. And we have been, you can say, pioneer and lead in this particular segment. And we did world's first kind of a tea delivery in 2018 back. But the vaccine and the pharmaceuticals, we delivered Asia's first vaccine in a cold chain environment from 2 degree to 8 degrees Celsius in September this year. And that project was done in Vikarabad district of Telangana. And the project was inaugurated by HMCA, Honorable Minister of Civil Aviation, Jyotiraditya Scindia. And that particular project actually changed a lot of things because now it's opened up. Uh, Commercially, the drone can be utilized to transport critical care medicines, blood components, etc. That particular project was actually to assess that how the medicine will perform after transporting that particular vaccine via drone. And in that particular project, we did a delivery of 200 doses of vaccine from an area hospital to a primary healthcare center. And the complete flight, during that complete flight, we monitored the live temperature and track that in a real time way. Likely, we track and monitor our flights as well. And complete during the complete flight, the temperature was maintained at 2.4 degrees Celsius. And then Apollo was partner to that particular project. So they checked the efficacy of the vaccine, and it was completely okay to administer to any, let's say, the consumer or patient. So in that particular scenario, what we learned is that what are the pain points of the current supply chain, particularly last mile and the mid mile, and how we can actually digitalize the logistics also. So getting the data, digitalizing the information of the customer, and now introducing the telemedicine, still there is a gap. Even if we can treat and check the patient, the patient needs to give a sample that needs to diagnose, and basis that some medicine needs to travel to that particular patient. And that part in that last mile and mid mile needs to be solved and digitalized. And that's what we are creating now, working with multiple states to actually create a centralized facility where we need not to create so many different storage units across the country, so many different diagnosis laboratories across the country, while all these things can happen at a central facility where the storage of all these critical medicines, vaccines are stored. And then the diagnosis center is also the same. So the vaccines can be vaccines and medicines can be taken from the distribution center to PHC, CHC, and while coming back, the same aircraft will bring the samples collected at those PHCs and CHCs. And the drone which we even have today can carry critical medicines of 3 kg up to 100-kilometer range. And in a complete 100-kilometer radius, we need not to have any other center for blood, for vaccine, for medicine storage, and diagnosis center. All these things can happen at a centralized facility, and that's going to be the future. And that's what we are driving with multiple states. Soon we will be starting our next delivery project in Northeast Meghalaya.
Great. Wonderful, Vikram. I think another round of applause to Vikram and his team for we've always heard of drones delivering basic packages to people, but using drones to deliver life-saving vaccines, and that too in the right format or the right temperature that they require. Extremely fantastic. Just one more question on top of that, Vikram. So do you see this service being used primarily for the rural areas where the reach of the typical distribution channels is not that good, or do you see this technology being adopted? So one is the government, which is a natural user of this service. Do you also see this being adopted by any other private organization?
Definitely. I mean, both the kind of players, I mean, the governments and the private distributor companies and the logistics companies, which are actually maintaining and let's say transporting the critical medicines under certain temperatures and which are critical in nature. So basically, even when we read the tagline of Global Pharma, moving pharma at the right time, right temperature, and right cost, because the cost will also play a very, very important role. And when you say that like it is being used, let's say currently to start within the remote areas, tier 3 and beyond, but these drones will be able to supply the pharmaceutical products or the medicines within minutes, where the current logistics supply can take couple of days. Even the current players like Pharmacy, Netmeds, 1mg, they take couple of days sometimes, but the entire thing can be converted into a 30-minute kind of a delivery. And that's what we are working with companies like Gina and company in this particular sector, in the private sector particularly. With the government, we are working in Northeast and Central India as well. With the ICMR also, we are starting to deliver vaccines in Northeast in Manipur very, very soon. So I think businesses and the governments both will adopt this to not just to supply at a faster speed, but to save cost also. This will save a lot of capex while maintaining, let's say, the medium OPEX. So ultimately, it will be cheaper at a full scale than the current logistics system.
Okay, so could you give us an idea of what the cost or the economics is like in terms of savings? You mentioned that, of course, capex is a big saving with a minor opex. Any rough numbers on how more economical it is to do this?
So it will be up to 50% economical than the current logistics cost. And in some scenarios, it will be at the same cost, but the value addition will be 10x because we are transporting at a 10x faster rate. So that ways, yeah, it will go up to 0.5x cost than the current one.
Okay, and this includes the 2 to 5 degrees, the entire
thing,
storage, all of that.
Entire thing, from transporting to maintaining those supplies at a right temperature.
Perfect. Thank you, Vikram, for sharing your views, and we'll come back to you soon.
I've got a question for Vikram.
Yes.
Vikram, do you have a short film or a video clipping of your entire operation of transporting from one place in Telangana to another place? So that
yes, I do have, and I'll share that link with Jevin or Rezi, and they can play it.
Sure. Thank you for asking that.
Right now, I'll share just in a minute.
We had actually discussed this. It would be very fascinating to see how the drone delivers the vaccine.
Unless people see it.
Correct.
And if you can put it down to across how much time it has taken for the delivery,
right?
People can quickly work out how others can use this as well.
Right.
Because there are certain specialty medicines which are meant for, which are special for different category of patients. There could be somebody in a remote district who is having a different disease which requires the medicine to be delivered, and maybe this could be the only way it can be done effectively.
Absolutely. So meanwhile, we'll just move on to our next point in the panel discussion, and this is going back to Sid. Sid, you mentioned earlier about UNICEF being one of the largest buyers of vaccines globally, and almost 4 billion doses, I believe, is what UNICEF buys annually. And the technology you've developed in terms of serialization and in terms of track and trace at the unit level, it also generates a lot of data. So could you share with us? You did mention it in the earlier part of our discussion, but could you elaborate a little bit more on what data already has been collected and how it can be useful to different stakeholders? Is any of the data going to be useful to, say, a pharma company in terms of usage of vaccine?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, you're right. So one of our first adopter of the technology was UNICEF. They in fact funded us for a lot of our product development. Primarily, their interest was from vaccines, and this was pre-COVID. And so interestingly, so this was pre-COVID, and the value that they see is they have a central procurement, but the products get distributed in 100 countries. So now sitting in a central in a Copenhagen, so how do we get visibility across all the countries, not just at a country level, but trickling down as the vaccines get to a regional level and sub-regional level, all the way to the implementation partners who are a third party organizations usually. So it's a very complex supply chain, and I'm pretty sure most of the supply chains are equally complex. But the idea is now two things. So in order to track a product, right, from the starting to beginning to the end, the previous problem was that they all were tagged at a batch level. So now batch can have 1,000 products, 100 products, 10. So now that batch, so you can't really identify all the way to the end consumer, right? So it loses its identity. Each batch can go into multiple different pharmacies or vaccine centers. So that's where the problem was. So that kind of changed with a couple of things that happened in the industry. One is serialization, which means most of the manufacturers have been moving towards printing individual serial numbers at a primary packaging level. So most of them have already adopted it. Some of them are on the journey to adopt it, but it's coming nevertheless, right? So it's either this year or next year or a few years down the line. So what that enables us is, for the first time, an ability to track a product using its already printed serial number all the way to the consumer. Now, how do you do it? You don't need fancy scanners everywhere. You don't need some heavy automation invested in different points in the supply chain. You just have a mobile app, which is basically capturing that data through a simple, it's a 2D barcode that is printed on a primary packaging level. So to simplify the number of scans, what you're doing is you're also creating aggregation layer on top of the products, which means as this primary products go into secondary packaging, tertiary packaging, you have that parent-child relationship between different packaging levels. So you can even try capture the data at an aggregation level. Now, why would people in between in the supply chain even scan your product or integrate with their ERP system so that you can capture the data automatically, right? So there has to be incentives. So the one way, there's two models that we do. One is the incentive is an intrinsic value in having visibility themselves, which means for their supply chain, they know where the inventories are, how their product is moving in different directions, and how they can maintain a better relationship between people downstream and upstream, right? So that's the distributors benefit that they get. But the second incentive is also something that was shared before. If you treat them as partners, so the second benefit is, hey, I mean, for every dollar that I'm getting, I'm going to share 1 cent with you for the scan that you're doing. So now suddenly there is a revenue model that you are creating for these people in between, and that is exciting, because for a very long time their core business and only business has been moving really moving the products and not been on the how they can monetize the data. So the monetizing data in the supply chain is something now, it is possible now because it is cheaper. It is very cheap. Internet is cheap, and the technologies for collecting and retrieving data is very cheap. So because of that, I think there is this tectonic shift towards how the supply chains. I mean, if a pharmaceutical distributors have their own distributors or stockists or anyone downstream, were never interested in helping the pharmaceutical companies before, right? So because they have their own struggles that they have to deal with, and this is just an additional burden that they're not ready to take. But if there is an incentive model, there is a new business model, there is a new revenue model that is aligning with them, so they're very happy, because this is what they're looking for.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Great. Thanks. So I think on that note, I'll just share a very small story, because I think what Sid has touched upon is the behavioral aspect of new technology adoption. So there is a perennial question that any change management initiative has to answer, or anything new that a person has to adopt. There is a fundamental question that needs to be answered, and that is, what's in it for me? So it's everything. I mean, even if there is a promotion, the question is, what's in it for me? A fancier title, a bigger car, bigger house, whatever. But when it comes to rolling out such important technologies across stakeholders outside your ecosystem, this question becomes even more important. So in one of the digitization pilots that we had run for a company in India, the distributor had to collect some data and share it with the principal. And it was very important for the principal to get that data so that they could plan their inventories in a certain way. So how will you convince a distributor to share this data? What was then thought of is, why don't we convince the distributor of what advantages this sharing of data indirectly will do for him. So if you share this data with us, we will redesign our inventory policies in such a way that at the end of the day, inventory is not pushed down to you, but rather we will supply as per the actual sale. And that will help you reduce the inventory burden at your end. So you will have a smaller warehouse, you will have fewer people to manage your entire business. So you will have the same business at a lower cost, or even better, you will have a much bigger business at the same cost. So I think that's what did the trick, because the technology was easy. It was not something difficult to do, but the human behavior part, which I think very well touched upon here, is something we all need to understand when rolling out any new IT initiative.
Context, I don't know how many of you are familiar with blockchain. So that kind of opens doors, right? The blockchain technology, for the first time, it's more than just technology. It's touching on that behavior aspect of, hey, how do I take this transaction data and build this financial layers on top of it, whether it's handling the payments, whether it's simplifying the contractual agreements. It's basically incentivizing people in so many different ways. So I can't even imagine the number of ways you can explore possibilities and new opportunities with the technology. So we're still at a very nascent stage, but I think that's kind of revolutionizing a lot of different industries right now.
Absolutely. Great. Yes, please.
Even is that there are two examples that I want to give, and I remember a very long time back, Walmart used to have a contract with PNG.
Yes.
So every good SKU getting sold, that used to get registered with PNG. Now I have an interesting example in India. What happened is, many of the stockists, the distributors in the distribution chain, they have their own portal. It's not a unified portal of all, but individual big stockists. So you go to a chemist, you ask for a product. You go to the pharmacy, you ask for a product. If the product is available, fair. But if the product is short, the pharmacist directly checks in the software of the major distributors as to which distributor that product is available. He places an order. The order gets come. So you are saving on manpower, right? That is one thing. Second, many people in India, many vaccine dealers, some vaccine dealers, not many, I would say, some vaccine dealers are basically working on a concept which we all know, that is JIT, just in time. So what's happening is, suppose if there is much of the vaccines is consumed by pediatrician, and suppose if in the pediatrician's fridge there are 10 vaccines of the same brand, and the consumption of that pediatrician is 1 vaccine per day. Okay, and once he places an order, once the pediatrician places an order, suppose it takes 2 days to supply the vaccine. So the moment the inventory comes down to 2, automatically the supplier, the vaccine dealer who is servicing that particular doctor, gets an intimation that the inventory level has now come to 2. The order is placed for the next 10 SKUs. The vaccine dealer rushes the stock. The inventory gets replenished on the completion of the remaining 2, right? So not only it's saving time, it's saving money, it's saving the doctor's time, the customer of the vaccine dealer, that I don't have to pick up the phone and order. He does not need to hire someone, that this person is there who will take care of my inventory. So everything is digitized in a real-time basis. So I think that's happening in India, even at the vaccine level, even at the pharmacy level, or the normal pharma products.
So we touched upon the problem of having multiple apps, right? So let's say if you are a pharma manufacturer, so you have your orders on most likely SAP or some other ERP. Then you have a line management tool, which is doing the serialization, which is capturing all the packaging information, printing serial numbers. Then you have the shipment details, which is probably on a provided by an integrator 3PL, who is providing you the shipment details, right? And that is just the first leg of the journey. Then the product goes to an airport and then gets delivered, and then you have no visibility into what happens after that. Now, so all of this is happening because we are not taking a product centric view, and it was never possible before because we didn't have that level of identifying a product, but it is possible now. So, but if you take a product centric view, so you have different data points coming from different sources of data, right? So your SAP, your serial numbers and shipment. So you map it all together, right, at the manufacturer's end. So you link the purchase order, how many serial numbers went into that purchase order, and then which shipment airway bill number is that going against. That's it. So after once it's hitting various touch points in the supply chain, all you're doing is taking the transaction data. Hey, I received the product, validation happened, all of the products are intact, temperature is in good condition. So you can now take that data and not just link it with the airway bill number, but map it all the way to the serial numbers, right? So the power that it gives you is, now imagine multiple hops. So you have one shipment 3PL for one leg of the journey, second 3PL that is carrying the product further down. So you're basically taking all the tracking data from multiple hops, and imagine there are multiple sensors. So for first leg of the journey, there is one sensor provider, then there is another sensor provider, there is a refrigerator that is being stored. Now you can take all this data, instead of going to 100 different web pages, typing different unique IDs and everything. All you're doing is basically taking a product or taking the purchase order from your records and just typing that number. And that kind of creates this digital thread of all the products where it has been. And so that is possible now. That's not really a future. That's possible now because the industry as a whole is investing in serialization, and the technology has become so cheap and it's so integrable with the because of the API technology. So that's possible now, and that can show a journey map of all the products, and it becomes also so easy to trace back a product because you have these records linked at a product level. Now 6 months down the line, you want to trace back a product, how it arrived there, what was the quality of the product. You want to figure out where the particular serial numbers are for recalls or returns. So all of these activities become so easy because you have a data at a serial number level and where they are heading and where exactly they are in the supply chain. So that can transform the entire industry. Now the possibilities open up once you have that data in terms of how you want to leverage it. So that's usually up to the pharmaceutical companies in terms of whether they want to build new businesses on top of it or just use it for building resiliency and cutting down costs.
Sid is perfectly right, and I want to add something to it, Sid, just adding value to what you said. And there is a real life incident long back. There was this manufacturing plant, Umeshji. I'll not take the name of the company, that's forbidden for the time being. And they used to have an ophthalmic solution, something eye drops. Now that the eye drops from a particular batch actually generated hypoglycemia in the patient. Okay. They are not meant for hypoglycemia is something you reduce the sugar level of the body. Now, 1 patient, 2 patient, 3 patient. So then they check the batch number. When they checked the batch number, they found that particular batch, when it was being manufactured, the eye drops, before the batch of the eye drops, there was a anti-diabetic drug tablet which was there, and they did not clean it properly. They did not clean it properly. So the anti-diabetic, the hypoglycemic drug got mixed with the eardrops and they had a reaction. I think something of this technology, although applicable in the logistics also, it's quite relevant even in the production or mapping of the journey of the product. I would say mapping the journey of the product right from the production plant right up to the end consumer.
Yeah, right. So Umeshji, going back to you. So we've heard what technology is capable of doing and what technology has done for us and what it is capable of doing. And on the other hand, we have customer requirements or regulatory requirements or the industry needs. So in between these two, what technology is capable of doing and what industry demands are the companies, the users of technology. So according to you, how should they go about this?
See, Sid has been talking a lot about serialization. It should happen. And I've been watching it over almost a decade that people are talking about serialization and the true form of how track and trace should happen. But basically, manufacturers feel it's a cost to them to introduce the system on their lines. While there are countries which are forcing manufacturers to go into serialization. Manufacturers in India are averse to using serialization as a tool because it means their entire train of machinery on the packaging line has to be altered. There is investment there, and they feel that it is not adding value. But in a sense, like he said, track and trace will only get back to you in the sense that if your products are extremely good, the serialization will help the pharma world to recognize your company as one which produces quality goods. So the mandate has been shifted to April of next year. So probably by April of next year, if it is enforced, and you would have serialization taking place in every pharma company and implemented across the globe. So that's the only way we can look forward to it. So my question to Sid on the other front is, now suppose my consignment is traveling by a truck from Goa to Mumbai, and the driver decides to take a break somewhere in Kolhapur, goes to his relative's house, shuts off the gen sets and decides to take a nap. Will your systems be able to tell me, sitting in my house in Goa, and say, look, this guy has done this. Can we call that guy up and tell him, look, this is what I can detect, and can you rectify it immediately?
Not exactly our tech, but we partnered with Intel. So Intel has this Mobileye solution, which basically is a camera on the dashboard, and it's basically tracking the trucks. How safely are they driving? Are they going through a different routes and all that stuff? So again, we can take that data back and map it to what shipments are in that truck. So say, just like the way we are taking the data from IoT devices, we don't ourselves have any IoT devices which are monitoring the temperature, but we can basically get the data from multiple IoT platforms and push it again, link it back to the shipments, the products which are being tracked by that sensor. So this tech, so it depends on how valuable the goods are and what is the unit level economics that matters. But the cost is, good news is all these costs are dropping like anything. So what was expensive back in October is not expensive today, because things are progressing quite rapidly. So we'll see a lot of those tech. Pressure monitors, so if someone is opening the doors and stealing products. So there's a lot of tech that is getting developed, and it will be more and more accessible. A lot of it is still viable at a pallet level, where you have aggregation of products, and it makes sense. It's not adding too much cost to your overall supply chain cost, but at an individual level, a lot of these are still fancy and futuristic. So that's why we made a conscious decision of not adding anything. So not even scanners. So it's just mobile app scanning it, so that you're preventing all of that cost or overhead in the supply chain.
On that note, over to the video. I think we are ready to see the delivery of vaccines. Thank you for playing that. And moving on, I think I'll just take a small cue from the last point. I think what Sid mentioned is that the good news is that month on month, or as time goes by, the costs are going down. Because in many of the conferences that I've attended, and I'm sure that you've attended, we've always heard one of the hurdles of adopting technology, especially outside our ecosystem, is the cost. And the question always is, who will build the cat? So who should be the first one to take the initiative to adopt any new technology? So one is either it is mandated by regulation and hence the industry has to do it, or it ultimately adds to higher revenue or saving in the bottom line. But I think the good news that we are hearing today and for all of us is that costs are going down, of course, internet costs. But I think one of the other important things is devices. So like you mentioned, in your technology, you've actually done away with the need for any scanners. But I think that was the other hurdle, the number of devices which would be required to trace a product through its entire journey. So I think that's the other advantage of thinking out of the box or keeping technology simple. So I think at the end of the day, if we can all take away from this story is if we keep it simple, I mean, if we try to remove the hurdles to technology adoption, then I think it would be a fairly smooth adoption of technology. So great. So moving on, I just had a question again for Ms. Smriti Iyer. You mentioned about the app which was developed, wherein it was developed in house, and it is basically for the first time in pharma that you said that this app was made. Can you elaborate a little bit more about the data which is being generated and how you're making use of maybe a BI tool like Power BI to make more business sense of this data?
Yeah, sure. First thing is related to that mobile app. Yes, of course, we have, as I told earlier, we have upgraded our ERP and we are pushing our data and integrating our temperature information. Every 5 minutes, we are pushing it to the cloud. And yes, the app is already giving you the information where we give the transparency of end to end what we handle right from the truck docking till the release from our terminal. One more step we have taken into consideration is in case of any pharma consignment shipments which has come to our terminal, which needs cool container, which needs to be taken till the release to the aircraft. Even we are taking the information of the temperature monitored temperature level, which has been there in the cool container, and that is getting recorded in our solution. Even that is also shown in our app. So that gives the transparency for the stakeholders for the time what we handle the shipments in our terminal. That is the thing. Yet apart from that, yes, we do analyze the data, whatever the shipments handle in our terminal. We take the information and analyze the data in different verticals with respect to airline wise, shipper wise, and continent wise, and which airline to which continent the most pharma shipments are flying, and that kind of analysis which we are currently doing, which will also give us insights in to how to get the whom we have to coordinate and how to get it, and what kind of next step or next this thing action we have to take into with respect to the technology part.
Wonderful. So we have a few minutes more, and with the permission of the panel, what we can do is we can take a few questions from the audience. So at this time, let's take a few questions and then see where we are with respect to the time, and then have some concluding remarks. So can I have some questions? Yes, Mr. Jani.
First of all, it's about drop. Punctuation, I think so it's India-made drop.
Yes.
And it's the technology which is Indian-made. Yes. So congratulations to you. Can we invest money in your company? That's the first question. Number two, what is the range for you have, what you can go, up to what kilo your drone can carry. And as you know, future of drone will come on line haul drone, when you can carry 1 ton or 2 ton of drones from point A to point B. That will be the future, because costing of drone from point A to point B will be even lower than the trucking cost. That's what is expected. And of course, whether it's electric or whether it's going to fuel base, we will then talk of CO2. It's too early to talk about carbon emission and climate change at this point of time. But as my third question is, what happened to the base station? Do you need one base station, or you control from one center point for the all India? Are you going to use radar for your technology, or it's a simple technology? And how we can popularize within the transportation more, because sending samples and e-commerce parcel has a limited application. When you have a 1 ton or 2 ton of drone bringing commercial cargo or B2B, connecting from hubs to, spoke to hubs, and that will revolutionize in this country lower than the trucking costs. So that's my question.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your appreciation. I think I'll start with the capabilities, the current capabilities of these equipments. So these equipments are totally designed and manufactured and deployed in-house. And the current drone can carry up to 10 kg, and the maximum range is up to 100 km at a maximum speed of 120 km per hour. These drones can operate from minus 15 degrees Celsius to plus 60 degrees Celsius, means covering Jaisalmer to Leh Ladakh as well, and ceiling height of 4,500 meter AMSL from mean sea level. And these aircrafts are totally autonomous. While we are planning to create the entire network of hub and spoke model, where the deliveries will happen from that particular center to that PHE, CHE, or any delivery zone, the aircraft need not to recharge at the delivery point to come back. So the aircraft will come back and recharge and store at the central facility, which is saving a lot of capex and opex on the delivery side as well. When we operate all these drones, it's completely centralized, and there are redundancies at every level. There are safety, reliability concerns also. So at every single level, we have a redundancy. When we talk about the propulsion, when we talk about the communication cannot be hacked, as it is already encrypted with the AES 256 bit, but jamming can happen. Even our drones are jamming proof and having the redundant communication with the RF. Then the complete 2G, 3G, 4G, and now the 5G, when it gets live, will be compatible with the 5G as well. And then when there is no RF link, when there is no 2G to 4G or 5G in remote areas or in hilly terrains, that's where the satellite communication comes in. And that's what we also have. So 3 layer of the communication. When we talk about the tracking of all these drones and monitoring, it will happen from a centralized facility. So for one hub and spoke, there will be one central facility where the operators will be. Though these drones can be operated anywhere from the world, because all these are connected with the internet. On the capability side, that how much we can carry. So the plan is to go up to 1 ton to 2 ton definitely in next 1 to 2 years. We are already working with a drone which can carry 50 kg payload and can go up to 300 kilometer distance. We believe that the larger payload and volume transporting from bigger cities to the smaller towns or smaller villages will actually reduce the cost and time both. So definitely that is the future: high payload, heavy volume, and long ranges. And the question about the investment, sir, yes, we have recently raised our seed round, and we are now in a process to raise a pre-series A. So yes, we are open for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So on that note, we'll just take a small pause here and say goodbye to Sid. He has a flight to catch back to his home city. Thank you, Sid, for being with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I mean, it was super valuable and very complementary with the next panel, the previous panel discussion. What I feel is missing, unless I missed it myself, is the junction when it comes to cargo logistics or air cargo logistics itself. As we were talking about serialization, the product point of view, I would say, how do you link this unique reference number to the external packaging itself? So let me explain. On the piece level, how do you tag it physically? What is the link, physically with the internet or with the IoT? How do you match? How do you reconciliate the two? Because one of my view was on that, okay, each packaging should have then, from the creation of the packaging, a unique reference number, for instance, or a tag or whatever you would use, so that you can flag it amongst the full supply chain.
Okay, so I think this question was more directed towards Sid, but if I can just try to answer this question, it's all linked to the batch number. So the primary packaging and the secondary packaging would have the batch number details. And from what we understood is there is a mobile app, and it is the mobile app which actually captures the data all the way from the manufacturing location till each leg in the supply chain.
This one I totally understand, but on the piece level, so if you take a GHA, it will be manipulating, handling, let's say 4 skids. How does it identify these 4 different skids into its own ERP, and how do we reconcile then the product itself?
Smriti, any?
Once again.
Once again?
Once again,
Okay,
yes.
okay. Let's take an airline point of view or a GHA point of view. From an handling point of view, it will make the acceptance of 1 airway bill with 4 pieces. How do you identify the 4 pieces so that at the end you can reconcile the full shipment maybe in real time, but at least you know exactly what is the match between the serialization identification code we were talking before and the piece itself?
Yes, right. Currently we are already working on the piece level barcoding capturing in our ERP, which is it is getting developed right now, and will be doing that piece level wise in accepting the cargo in another 2-3 months time, and then we will be able to track piece level also in our app. Currently it is airway bill wise. Airway bill level. It's not piece level.
This question is more related to Sid.
Yeah.
If I may.
Sure, please. Yeah.
This would.
Yes.
I think so what Seeds technology speaks about, go below the batch number. So every piece is now numbered or identified. And moving forward, each piece going in a master carton. First, the batch cartons, small boxes to the master carton. Master carton then goes to the airway bill. What the gentleman is asking, there were 4 cartons. How you will know in which carton going where? Now, since the cartons are marked, and within the carton, the packaging carton is also marked of the product, and that would also show what strips. Suppose you have 10 strips in that box, it will say what strips in this box. So actually it's in bifurcation of all the data, and that's what he's saying. He's using this blockchain to get this data bifurcated and to move smoothly from point to point. I hope that answers.
Yeah.
A little bit I know because Siddhar's made this presentation to me.
Correct.
So I'm just trying to answer what I understood.
Yeah.
I'm not a techie guy, but I know I've put in money in his company, so I know. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. You wanted to.
See, I was referring about the same matter. Actually, India is already under GS1, and it is a compulsory for the regulated market to have serialization. Like each country has got its own, like FMDs for the UK, US has got the same way. So when you are, I think, tracking through airway, but you are correlate with that serialization. So you club up with that. So from the first mile to last mile, you can track it.
Yeah. So
That will be the best way.
That will be the best way. We need to get
Yes.
that integrated from the other
Yes.
collaborators.
And that is a, I think, pedigree that law has already framed out. It's already there.
Okay.
And this is adopted by those who are exporting to regulated market. So I think internally you have to integrate that part. Another, I wanted to ask about the drone. What is the safety at receiving end? See, in between, how you track it out, because it's there are so many in cities, building and other things are there. How you safely deliver that? That's very important factor. And you must be giving alert for dispatching and shipment. But what about the safety?
So definitely that's a good question. And the entire flight is being tracked on different level of communications. So one, as I was speaking earlier, the radio frequency directly RF link, then your cellular network, and then the satellite connectivity. So throughout the flight, the aircraft monitoring is already happening, and the package monitoring, if let's say there is a temperature controlled box, that entire monitoring is live. It's not a point to point monitoring, but a complete live monitoring as well as the data logging. On the safety and security, so on the security side, these drones goes through the airworthiness certifications, which we already have from the earlier our operations. The secondly, the safety in terms of the flight, how this particular drone will not fall on somebody's head, right? Everybody can ask that kind of a question, and we have been, you can say, getting these questions from the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Defense, Indian Air Force, and a lot of, IB, Bureau, and other agencies as well. So that's where we have included the multiple layer of redundancies in terms of the propulsion. So if let's say, so this aircraft takes off from a 5 meter by 5 meter space vertically like a helicopter, and then transit like a airplane, and then again while landing it transit back. So it has a dual propulsion system. One fails, another kicks in automatically. Even if let's say both the propulsion system fails, it independently powered with the processor and sensors. There is a parachute fitted in the drone, which automatically kicks in case of it detects the ultimate failure, and then it softly land the aircraft, not damaging the aircraft as well as anything on the ground. So that's how it is safe. And then the cargo at the takeoff and at the landing or at the delivery point is handled by a authorized person. It's not that it's a individual home delivery is happening. It's a hub and spoke model where all these areas will be in a control of a certain person.
Yes.
It is point to point.
Yes.
Yes, we have a question there.
It's a kind of answer for product-wise tracking. Like it always depends upon the manufacturer side that they need to do an extra step to fulfill this process. Like currently we do the packing list, like number of pallets that they have in the product. So maybe kind of manufacturing side that they need to adapt the facility. Like each product need to be tracked to the packing list. So they can like if there are 11 pallets and 10,000 products. So what and all the serial number of products can be linked within the ERP system of manufacturer. So it can be used in different level of stakeholders, and with the help of blockchain as well, so it can be easily transferred.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, so I think that we've had a very, very interesting discussion, and I think in every conference or in every management meeting or boardroom, this question of technology has always come up. What is the roadmap for the organization to implement certain technologies? I think that is the first thing to really define once we've implemented a full-blown ERP within our organization, and then we have to implement some technologies for meeting certain regulations or for getting data. So I think today we all recognize that data is the new oil, and there is a lot of data to be mined, and there's a lot of data analytics to be done on top of that mined data to really harness some strong business insights. But the journey is long, and it has to be tread very carefully, as I said, with a very clear roadmap. Because there are companies which try band-aid solutions. They hit a business problem and they try to implement a tech solution without really realizing the pitfalls or even the benefits of that solution. But taking the band-aid approach really doesn't work. I think it has to be more carefully planned. Perhaps a surgical approach in terms of planning out the whole rollout of technology. And on that note, I would just like all the panel members, if you have any more comments or any advice to share with our audience, please go ahead. We still have about 10 minutes, so we can take one last closing comment from all of you.
I request to the industry supporters, partners of shipping line, you have airlines, warehouse, as a starters. Today morning we started with a conversation that collaboration, pandemic has brought collaboration into, I have seen that change in nature of people who understand empathy more, and people have started to understand and push beyond the limits to help other partners. For me, technology is a type of collaboration. Okay, to define two things. One is speed, and second, the most important today, is visibility. As an industry, I request all my partners, why can't we have an open platform? Like for example, airlines can tell me at a click of button, okay, what is the capacity pending with them, so I can book it accordingly. Why can't a cargo can tell me? Why I have to depend on some other partner to tell me, okay, we have a 10 pallet space only left today. Now, reason being that if I have a transparency, visibility, I can go back to my marketing or my manufacturing unit and tell, see, my target is that on 15th I have this space availability and this availability in the aircraft or airline or shipping line. If you can deliver me, so pressure will come back to the manufacturing unit and they will plan according to the requirement of the partners. Not partners will work according to manufacturers. Today it is like crisis management. If you have this transparency, might possible the pressure will come back to manufacturers. More accurate planning can be possible for, and all stakeholders would be in the better position and give a better price also and a better realization of the equipments. Turnaround time would be faster. That means for all would be win-win situation. So I think we have to give a thought for this new idea. I just thought might possible we can look into this.
Sure.
If you have any idea, Lupin is open for that discussion. We can take it further.
Sure.
That's all.
Thank you. Umesh ji?
Yeah, I feel that the coming decade is a decade of digitalization, and almost all the pharma companies are going to adopt digitalization because they will be forced to adopt considering the benefits that digitalization is there. But it also, like I said, it has to go with a definite roadmap as to what you want to achieve. And it should go with the culture of the company as well, because there's a lot of training that is to be imparted, understanding of the entire processes and the testing that has to be done to ensure that things work out well. So I think we are on the right, on the road to lots of improvement during the next decade or so. So it's going to be a decade of digitalization and a decade of the supply chain as well.
Right.
So that's what we are looking ahead for.
Right. Thank you so much. Mr. Santosh?
Taking a leaf from what Mr. Parikh was saying, that there are multiple softwares. So I remember one example long time back, 6-7 years back. There was this colleague of mine, and every time the boss used to ask him, tell me about what happened about this work. So he used to say, yes, the person A knows it. Asha, tell me about this work. The person B knows it. Tell me about this work. The person C knows it. So what do you know? I know the person who knows it. So sometimes it becomes relevant that we need one unified platform. Okay, one thing. So second, what I would like to say is that we need a unified one space, one where we can add simplicity. Now again taking a leaf from what Mr. Parikh was saying, that earlier in our own organization, the school truck where the vaccines are shipped from one point to the warehouse, from the factory to the warehouse, the same truck used to accommodate 100 cases. So the distribution chain said, why do you need such a big thermocol pack and all the thing? You can maintain the same cold temperature in a smaller thermocol pack. So a cold truck, okay, which earlier used to accommodate 100 cases, will now accommodate 150 cases. So it saves on the cost, the distribution cost. And we did it, and we were very successful in bringing down the cost level. So I think even small innovations, incremental innovations in a day-to-day culture of the organization works very well. I would close my statement by saying this, that there was this interesting thing I read on LinkedIn, that there was this advertising agency, and the advertising agency is being called by the CEO of the company. And the advertising agency asks, Mr. CEO, what is the purpose of your organization? And on a lighter side or a humorous side, the CEO said, we have called you to tell us that. Now, the advertising agency or communication agency cannot decide the culture of an organization. The culture of the organization has to be top-down, top-bottom approach. And I think somewhere in this case also, in digitization of logistics, the management, the CEO, the board of directors will have to play a crucial role, and all the tech people, they will have to also deliver value. That you do this, this is the value it generates for you at throughout the level of the supply chain, or right from manufacturing up till to the end. Thank you, Javin.
Thank you. Thank you. Smriti ji, your reply to that, the tech people need to show.
Yeah. Right from morning, from the starting of the session, I'm hearing many words like collaboration, communication, transparency, visibility, and every panel I have also monitored that all the organizations started doing their data and data research and everything. And few of the organizations have already gone up to make a give a end-to-end visibility within their reach. So everybody, if all the stakeholders and regulators and everybody starts working together and can collaborate all this information into one platform, so that we can create a e-freight corridors globally, and connecting all the primary hubs, air cargo hubs across the continent, which will give a more transparency for everyone.
Right. Thank you so much. And Vikram, from you.
So I would like to just highlight a few points as a social impact when we talk about carbon footprint and social impact. Without the COVID, every single day, 72 women die while giving a birth to a baby, just because there is not a right kind of blood or blood component is available. Even bigger than that, 137 people every day die because of a snack bite, because anti-venom is not available at the right time, at the right place. And all these things are happening because today we do not have, there is a lack of immediate availability of blood and emergency medicines, vaccines. There is a delay from stock to, let's say, reaching to that particular center. And then disasters are also there. So creating on-demand 24/7 supply of these essentials is the need of the hour without even the COVID. And speedy logistics is the future, which is like, again, next decade is of the deep tech automation of the entire logistics industry. Earlier, there was a lot of gaps and a lot of, you can say, unseen technologies were not there in this particular industry. So even today, temperature controlled last mile deliveries of these medicines and vaccines in a remote and a difficult terrain is very, very hard, even with all these current solutions which we have. And quick response with the aerial deployment is not available. So I think as other panelists were saying, that all the management and board people needs to take conscious call of enabling. So technology is available, regulations are also now, you can say, eased up. How fast we can adapt to these technologies to actually lead from India and then going global. While a lot of time Western technologies comes in India, but this time we can all take our Indian originated technologies outside India and then rule this particular automation of the logistics for last mile, mid mile also. So this is what I think I have as a message for all panelists and audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vikram. Thank you so much. Amen to that. And on that note, let's hear it again for the entire panel. I hope you all enjoyed the panel discussion. So let's have another quick round of applause for all the panelists. And I'm sure the day is not far away when, like Star Trek, we'll be able to beam products from one place to the other. Anyway, thank you so much for being a wonderful audience, and see you.